Welcome to Narayana IAS Academy. This is Sureka Bhaskar presenting to you the Daily News Analysis. So for today's discussion, we've picked up a number of articles from The Hindu and the Indian Express which are both important and relevant for the UPSC CSE examination. Now let us have a look at the topics one by one. The first article for the day has been picked up from page number 6 of The Hindu, a new push in the Bay of Bengal. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about India's hosting of the second BIMSTEC Foreign Ministers Retreat in New Delhi in order to enhance the regional cooperation in areas of security, connectivity, trade and investment within the Bay of Bengal region. The second article has been picked up from page number 6 of The Hindu, using children's personal data legally and securely. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about India's expansive education system, the UDISE Plus platform for data collection, the APAR platform for the student identification, the data privacy concerns, as well as the need for regulatory updates as per the Data Protection Act of 2023. The third article has been picked up from page number 15 of The Hindu. Paris unveils the ultimate spectacle of pomp, fervour and splendour. In this particular article, we'll be discussing about the Olympic Games, the historical background, and we'll be discussing about how it originated, as well as we'll be discussing about the key highlights of the 2024 Olympics and what has been India's performance so far at the Olympic Games. The fourth article has been picked up from page number 1 of The Hindu. Royal burial mounds of Ahom dynasty from Assam make it to the UNESCO World Heritage List. In this particular article, we'll be discussing about these royal burial mounds which are known as the Noidams, as well as the details of the UNESCO World Heritage List. The last article for the day has been picked up from page number 9 of the Indian Express. At ASEAN meet, Jaishankar holds talks with other leaders. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about this particular regional grouping of ASEAN, that is Association of Southeast Asian Nations. And towards the end of the discussion, we'll be solving few prelims as well as the mains practice questions. And now let's get into the discussion. The first article that we'll be discussing for the day is New Push in the Bay of Bengal region. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about how and when India will be hosting the second BIMSTEC foreign ministerial retreat. Okay. And here we'll be discussing about how India is focused on enhancing the regional cooperation with the countries in the BIMSTEC region, especially in areas of connectivity, trade, investment, etc. For this particular article, we'll be discussing about this BIMSTEC, that is this regional cooperation, as well as it is relevant from the geopolitics point of view. And also, this particular topic can be mapped to GS paper 2, bilateral, regional and global groupings and agreements involving India or affecting India's interests. So there has already been a question which has been asked in the 2022 mains examination with respect to that of BIMSTEC, and do you consider whether BIMSTEC is a parallel organization with that of SAARC? So understanding these regional cooperations, the agreements, the composition, whether India has been a founding member or not, the participation, performance, etc. become very, very important for both your prelims as well as the mains examination. Now let us understand what this particular article is discussing about. So India recently hosted the second BIMSTEC Foreign Ministers Retreat in New Delhi, where India's External Affairs Minister highlighted BIMSTEC as the intersection of India's Neighbourhood First policy, the Act East policy, as well as the Sagar vision. Here, it is important to understand all these policies. First of all, it is important to know what is India's foreign policy. From there, you need to know how India has actually transcended to having strategic autonomy and how this strategic autonomy has actually transcended from the pre-independence to the contemporary era. So these kind of small policies like neighborhood and Act East policy, etc. becomes very, very important for your understanding for the mains examination. Now let us understand what is this BIMSTEC and how it actually has an intersection with that of India's interest. Okay. So the Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation was actually formed in the year 1997 with the Bangkok Declaration, very, very important. The major objective or the vision of this particular regional grouping is to promote technical and economic cooperation among the countries in the Bay of Bengal region, and it comprises of the littoral states and the adjacent countries in the Bay of Bengal region, where 7 member states include the Bangladesh, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Thailand, Myanmar and India. Very, very important. And whether India is a founding member of BIMSTEC or not, all this is very important. And if you see, Nepal and Bhutan were not the founding members and they actually acquired the membership only in the year 2004. Again, important because once BRICS was actually there, and which of the countries were the last to join the BRICS was actually asked in your exam. The headquarters of BIMSTEC is actually Dhaka, and the chairmanship is actually a rotating chairship where Thailand happens to be the current chair of this particular regional grouping. Here, if you see the key features of BIMSTEC, the first one, if you see in terms of population and GDP, the BIMSTEC region encompasses 22% of the world's population, approximately 1.5 billion people, and it has a combined GDP of around $3.697 trillion annually. Also, if you see the sector-driven organization over here, that is, unlike the regional groupings like the SAARC and the ASEAN, BIMSTEC is actually a sector-driven organization with areas of cooperation divided among the member states. And if you see India's perspective with respect to that of BIMSTEC, for India, BIMSTEC actually aligns with its Act East policy, that is, look towards the East for more and regional cooperation, and aims to enhance trade and security prominence in the Indian Ocean region. Very, very important. And what has been the recent achievement? Recently, BIMSTEC has achieved a significant milestone with coming into force of its first charter. So here again, it's important to know what is this BIMSTEC charter, whether it actually aims to, ensure the connectivity, the trade or the investment. This is very important. Now moving forward, let us see how BIMSTEC acts as an intersection of India's policies. First one, we actually discuss neighborhood first outlook. First is regional stability. By fostering very strong relations with the neighboring countries, India actually ensures regional stability and cooperation. So if India actually has a good kind of stability with that of the other nations, that is the BIMSTEC nations, it is crucial for India's security and the economic interest as well. Next one, economic integration. This particular BIMSTEC promotes regional economic integration. This aligns with India's goal of strengthening ties with its neighbors. Next is Act East policy. This is the ASEAN engagement. BIMSTEC serves as a conduit for India's engagement, that is, through which it can actually engage with ASEAN also, further facilitating deeper cooperation in economic as well as strategic ties. Next, if you see, there are infrastructural links between India as well as the BIMSTEC, where you have projects like the India-Myanmar-Thailand trilateral highway. This actually aligns with India's efforts to develop infrastructure links with Southeast Asia for development. And finally is the SAGAR, which actually stands for Security and Growth for All in the Region Vision. Okay, so here there is maritime security dimension where BIMSTEC's emphasis on maritime cooperation aligns with India's SAGAR vision, ensuring security and growth in the Indian Ocean region. And also this is useful, that is, the collaborative efforts in fisheries and the marine resource management of the BIMSTEC, this actually supports India's initiatives in promoting its blue economy. And now let us see what are the challenges and setbacks that are actually faced by the BIMSTEC. First one, there is actually lack of efficiency and slow progress. This is in terms of, irregular meetings, as well as there are a lot of operational constraints. Next one, this is because of, financial as well as lack of manpower resources. So this actually affects the effectiveness in the functioning of this regional grouping. Next one, selective interest by India, where there has been the influence of SAARC, where India's interest in BIMSTEC often surges when SAARC is actually hindered due to tensions with Pakistan, raising concerns about the consistent commitment India actually has with this regional grouping. Next one, limited trans-border trade and connectivity. If you see with respect to that of India-Myanmar border, it is a 1,600 kilometer border between India and Myanmar is among Asia's least open, limiting the potential. Okay, so it is actually not open for trade and commerce. Next one, there is low trade volume, where you see India's trade was only 4% of its global foreign trade as of 2020, and this is actually down from the double digits which was back in 1950s itself. Next one, there is inter-regional trade variability between the region, where trade among BIMSTEC countries varies significantly, with countries often importing from non-member countries rather than from within the bloc. The next challenge is absence of an FTA, that is the Free Trade Agreement, where you see, while BIMSTEC lacks an FTA, member countries are involved in various bilateral and multilateral agreements, complicating the unified trade efforts. Moving forward, there are also maritime trade and tourism challenges like the coastal ecosystem. You can see Despite the rich resources, BIMSTEC countries have not yet developed a shared coastal shipment ecosystem. And also, there are detentions of fishermen along the border. And next, if you see, there are, political tensions over here, where you can see there is, the Rohingya refugee crisis constraints or the strains were there. This actually strained the relationship between two countries of Bangladesh as well as Myanmar. And then we had India-Nepal border dispute, which was in 2017 or 18. And then the political situation right now, civil war is actually going on in Myanmar, and all these have, drawn the international criticism, and this complicates the, cooperation in this particular region. So, having looked at what is the prospect that BIMSTEC actually holds for India, now we need to conclude this particular topic with a very, very neutral conclusion or a solution if you have to propose. So, here, a robust and consistent commitment to BIMSTEC is necessary. Improved infrastructure, enhanced maritime cooperation, and resolving the regional tensions can actually significantly boost the regional integration, security, and the economic growth for all the member nations in this particular Bay of Bengal region. The next article that we'll be discussing about is using children's personal data legally and securely. So this particular article discusses about the huge and the wide expanse of India's education system, and in such a wide expanse, how it is important to deal with the children's personal data legally and also at the same time securely. So in this particular article, we'll be dealing with the data protection, and also we'll be discussing about this concept of UISDE that has actually been brought by the Ministry of Education, as well as this APAR, that is the APAR platform, and the right to privacy, as well as what the Supreme Court had actually convened with respect to that of the right to privacy under the Puttaswamy judgment. And this particular topic can be mapped to current events of national and international importance for the prelims examination and for the mains examination. It can be mapped to GS paper 2, government policies and intervention. And if you see, with respect to that of data protection, there has already been question in the year 2019. So this particular topic, that is any kind of data protection formulation and regulation that is actually brought by any country across the world, is very, very important. And what is the status with respect to the data protection by India? That is also very important for your prelims and mains. Now let us understand what this particular article is discussing about, okay? So, the article discusses the challenges and what are the essential protocols that we need to adopt in order to securely, safely and legally actually use the children's personal data. So, this is what is said here. And it also emphasizes the importance of the concept of data privacy as well as the minimalistic use of data, especially considering the sensitive nature of children's personal data, okay? So, you can use that and you can do a lot of, things that are actually not allowed legally. So, moving forward, let us understand about the vast expanse of the Indian education system. If you see, Indian school education system is one of the most expansive ecosystems in the world, as it is actually comprised approximately of 15 lakh schools. It has 97 lakh teachers as well as nearly 26.5 crore students who are enrolled from the primary to the higher education levels, and it boasts of stakeholders from various socio-economic backgrounds. And now moving forward, we will see in such a vast expanse how have been the data relevant or related to these students in particular are being regulated and controlled, and how are they actually used legally and securely. First one, there has been an introduction of UDISE, which actually stands for Unified District Information System for Education Plus. So this is the full form of UDISE. So this has actually been launched by the Ministry of Education in the year 2018 in order to manage the vast and diverse Indian school education. So what does this particular platform do is that it collects the real-time information on the school infrastructure, how many teachers are actually involved there, what is the enrollment of the student, what has been the academic performance of the students in order to enhance the quality of education in India. And it is vital for this particular ministry of education so that based on this information, what are the school dropouts, what are, how many teachers are there, what is the student to teacher ratio, etc., they can actually formulate the outcome-based policies and improve the resource allocation. So these are more or less, you can understand it, it's very simple. Also, it also helps to monitor the educational programs and it can map the trends in the education. That is, what is the, preference of the students of late, whether they actually want to take a professional course or whether they can take arts, etc., can be mapped by this particular thing, ultimately aiming to strengthen the administration as well as optimize the service delivery. Now moving forward, the second one. Apart from the UIDSE plus, there is the National Education Policy 2020 and its implementation of APAAR, that is nothing but Automated Permanent Academic Account Registry Identification. So this actually creates a unique identifier for each student, like a unique ID is actually generated, and this was actually introduced by the NEP 2020. So this collates the academic credential as well as the demographic information, including the Aadhaar details, which are obtained through voluntary consent. Very, very important. Next is, there was integration of this UIDSE plus the APAAR. So the integration aims to automate the student admission, reduce the dropout rates as well as enhance continuing education opportunities. And also there are entities like the DigiLocker, where you need not actually carry your physical original certificates to the institution, but you can actually have it digitally in your phone or your PC. So these as well as edtech companies, they collaborate with the state governments, making them integral to the education system, making it easier. So far we've actually discussed about what is actually the expanse of the Indian education system and how it actually includes stakeholders from various socio-economic backgrounds. And then we also, were discussing or listed the various measures that have been taken so far in order to, secure as well as legally use the, children's data. And now we'll look into what are the challenges in the data protection. First is, there are regulatory as well as compliance challenges. For example, the Ministry of Education formulated a data sharing policy for school education and literacy in 2020. However, if you see what is the lag in this particular policy, there is no update, and only when there is an update, it can talk about the regulatory changes, right? So, there has been no update in order to reflect the regulatory changes that has been brought by the Digital Personal Data Protection Act of 2020. So, if you're not clear with what kind of regulations or the minimum standards for the edtech companies, compliance with the act becomes questionable. The next challenge is that there is potential issue with the parental consent. So here there are several potential pressure points where non-compliance could occur. For instance, there is limited guidance on what constitutes verifiable parental consent. So there was an issue where students below the age of 18 should actually have the parental consent for the data to be used. Okay, so consent from the parents of the minor's data as required under this particular UDISE as well as APAR regime may not meet the necessary standards. And also, if you see, the Data Protection Act emphasizes the personal data should only be collected for specific legitimate purposes. So what if the data is used for other purposes that are not mentioned under the DPDP Act? That again becomes a challenge, okay? And the next challenge is there are no specific protocols so far. So the exchange of children's personal data for unspecified purposes rather than, other than what is actually required, again, causes a problem by, these third parties, okay? So identifying which entity qualifies as a data fiduciary or a data processor and data principal is necessary. See, these vocabulary you need to know what are the meaning of these terms. This actually division or demarcating their roles is very, very important, but this is actually a very, very complex task and it is not currently undertaken. Also, the privacy policy of APAR specific certain data security, their aggregation, third-party integration and retention requirements actually lack specific protocols for sharing children's personal data for unspecified purposes. Now moving on, there is actually absence of legal liability as well as grievance addressal. Okay. So if you actually see the annual report, that is a data policy and annual report, that actually states there is absence of legal liability for the ministry regarding the accuracy of the data that is actually disclosed on the UDISE+. And the privacy policy, this directs grievances to the grievance officer, but there is no particular clarity on how legal liability is affixed or it is practically incurred. And this actually shows a lack of grievance redressal forum. Okay. Now moving forward, let us understand what has been the three-part test that has actually been specified by the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court actually recognized the right to privacy as a fundamental right, in which case Justice K.S. Puttaswamy versus Union of India in 2018, where the court clearly put down a three-part test in order to assess the impact of the state action. So whatever data a state actually uses In case if you feel that it is actually an infringement on the right to privacy, what are the 3 tests it actually has to qualify to prove it otherwise? First one is a legitimate state interest. There must be a legitimate state interest in restricting the right to privacy. Next one, necessity and proportionality. The restriction must be necessary and proportionate in order to achieve the state interest. And final one, it should be on a legal basis. That is, the restriction must be imposed or effected by law. If you see, for example, in case we want to integrate Aadhaar with this particular APAR and UDISE+, then you must comply with these 3 conditions. That is, it has to be legitimate, it has to be on legal grounds, and it has to be necessity as well as proportionality test should be met. And due caution is necessary in order to prevent any kind of data piracy and cyber breaches, adhering to the principles of data privacy and minimization, especially considering the sensitivity of using children's data. And so, for conclusion, overall, if we actually see all these challenges, it is essential. We know that it is essential to, set a standard operating procedure. And also, there has to be a proper protocol that will help you preserve the data authenticity and prescribe the legal obligations for stakeholders. So, this overall will actually foster a conscious approach to sharing, using and retaining of children's personal data lawfully and securely. The next article that we'll be discussing about is Paris unveils the ultimate spectacle with pomp, fervour and splendour. So this actually talks about the ongoing Olympics, and here we'll be discussing about the Olympics game 2024, the key highlights, the number of participants, what are the games which are actually involved, and also we'll be discussing about what has been the performance of India since 1900 at the Olympic Games. Okay, so this particular article is actually mapped to current events of national and international importance for your prelims exam. As you can see, there has already been a question asked in the year 2021 in the prelims examination with respect to that of the 32nd Summer Olympics. So these kind of mascots, the theme, the motto, all these things become very, very important for your prelims examination. Now let us actually understand what this particular article is discussing about. So the 2024 Summer Olympics, officially known as the Games of the 33rd Olympiad, that is the 33rd time this is actually taking place, is scheduled to take place from 26th of July, that is from yesterday, till 11th of August 2024 in Paris, that is in France. Okay. So now let us actually understand about this particular Olympic Games and what actually does the symbol of 5 rings actually signify, how many participants are there, what are the different kind of games that actually, are held over there. So a globally renowned multi-sport event is actually the Olympics, and it is held every 4 years, very, very important. This actually features the top athletes from across the world. If you see the origin, the Olympic Games actually began in 776 BC in Olympia, that is in Greece, in honor of Zeus. He is actually considered to be as the Olympic god or the god of meteorology. Okay, so they were actually held every 4 years for nearly 12 centuries until 393 AD. Next, if you see, after that, when it actually got revived was that it was revived by Pierre de Coubertin in the year 1896. And this was a person who revived it. The first modern Olympics was actually held in Athens, that is Greece. This is also very, very important. And also, the International Olympic Committee was actually founded in the year 1894 to oversee how actually the game actually takes place. Okay. So, if you see the symbol, there are 5 interlocking rings. This actually represents the union of 5 inhabited continents and gathering of athletes from all around the globe. Now, let us actually understand about the kind of games that are conducted in the Olympics. The first one is the Summer Olympics, which is actually held every 4 years. And this features sports like athletics, swimming, as well as gymnastics. And the first modern Summer Olympics actually took place in 1896 in Athens. Followed by that, let's actually look at what is Winter Olympics as well as the Youth Olympic Games. Winter Olympics also held every 4 years with sports like skiing, ice hockey, as well as figure skating. And the inaugural Winter Olympics were actually held in 1924 in France. And followed by that is the Youth Olympic Games. Here, for young athletes, which is actually who are aged between 15 to 18 years, it is actually held with the first Summer Youth Olympic Games was actually held in 2010 and the first Winter YOG, that is the Youth Olympic Game was held in 2012. Now let us understand certain key highlights about 2024 Summer Olympics. So here the host city happens to be Paris, and this is the third time Paris is actually hosting the Summer Olympics, having previously done so in the years of 1900 as well as 1924. Again, important. And the motto is actually Games Wide Open. This is also important. How many participants are there? 206 participants are there, including the refugee Olympic team. So here it is important to understand what is this refugee Olympic team. It is nothing but it is a group of athletes which is made up of independent Olympic participants who are refugees, okay, who do not have, a proper identity. And in March 2016, the International Olympic Committee, that is the IOC, announced the creation of this particular refugee Olympic athletes team in order to raise global awareness of the scale of migrant crisis across, the globe, specifically with respect to that of Europe. And total sports that will actually be, taking place in this particular Olympic 2024 will be 32 sports, including 4 newly added ones that include breakdancing, sport climbing, skateboarding as well as surfing. And if you see cricket, whether it is a part of Olympics or not, it's very, very important for us to know. Cricket is not currently the part of Olympics. However, there have been discussions to include it in the future Olympic Games positively by 2028. Now, if you see what has been the performance of India in Olympics, let us actually see that. So, when India actually made debut into the Olympics game, India first participated in Olympics in 1900 with Norman Pritchard winning 2 silver medals in athletics. And also the first gold, India won its first gold medal in field hockey in the year 1928 Amsterdam Olympics. Moving forward, if we see the individual gold medal that India bagged, that was Abhinav Bindra, who won India's first individual gold medal in shooting in the year 2008 Beijing Olympics. Also, the field hockey dominance actually came, that is, India's men's field hockey team won 6 consecutive gold medals from the year 1928 to 1956 and a total of 8 gold medals in the sport. And also, if you see which has been the most successful Olympics for India, the 2020 Tokyo Olympics was actually very, very successful. It was held in 2021 due to COVID-19, where India was most successful because it had actually won a total of 7 medals, 1 gold, 2 silver and 4 bronze medals. And moving forward, reasons for India's low success at the Olympics, of course, we need to know, because there is actually lack of sports infrastructure in India and there is no sufficient support in terms of funding, that is insufficient funding, and there has also been political interference in the sports federation. Also, there are cultural barriers for women, etc. The next article that we'll be discussing about is royal burial mounds of Ahom dynasty from the state of Assam have actually made it officially into the UNESCO Heritage List. So in this particular article, we will be looking at this engineering marvel of the Cheraitio Moidams, and also we'll be discussing about what are and what is this Ahom dynasty, and also we'll be looking into the details of the UNESCO's World Heritage Sites, okay? This particular topic can actually be mapped to GS Paper 1 for the mains examination under Indian Heritage and Culture. So moving forward, there has been a question that has been asked in the prelims examination in the year 2014 with respect to that of the Montreux Record. Okay, so these kind of agreements, the negotiations, the international agreements and India's participation and the status of India's performance becomes very, very important for both your prelims as well as the mains examination. Moving forward, now let us actually understand what this particular article is discussing about, okay? So, the Cheraitio Moidams, that is an ancient burial mounds of the Ahom dynasty in Assam, have been recently inscribed into the UNESCO World Heritage List on 26 July 2024, and this actually makes India's 43rd heritage site. Moving forward, let us actually understand the legacy that the Ahom dynasty has actually left behind, okay? So, if you see the Ahom dynasty, which actually ruled Assam for nearly about 600 years until the annexation by the British, left an indelible mark on the region's culture, the architecture, as well as the history. And if you see, these particular structures are among the most significant remnants of this particular dynasty, and they actually serve as the final resting places for the royalty of Ahom, that is the prince, the princesses, the king, etc. And this actually encapsulates both their mortal remains as well as their personal belongings. And the shift from inhumation to cremation. What do you mean by inhumation? This is actually burying the dead, and the cremation actually refers to subjecting the cadaver to intense heat so that it is actually converted to ashes. So there has been a shift from this particular burial of the body to the cremation in the 18th century, followed by the entombment. What do you mean by entombment? Where we actually capsulate the body into the compartments or mausoleums, which are actually made of granite, marble, etc. Of the cremated remains in these structures. This actually reflects a blend of indigenous practices as well as the influence of the Hindu religion. Now moving forward, let us actually see the moidams, which are the architectural marvels. Okay, so the moidams are pyramid-like earthen mounds drawing comparison to the pyramids of Egypt. And this architectural similarity not only highlights the universal human quest to honor the dead, but it also showcases the Ahom dynasty's unique approach to the construction of monuments. And also the preservation of 90 royal burials at the Cheraideo. Out of the 386 that were actually explored, this actually stands as a testament to the advanced engineering and the architectural prowess that the Ahom dynasty rulers actually had. Now let us understand what is this UNESCO's World Heritage Sites. Okay, so it is a location which is recognized by the UNESCO for its exceptional cultural or the natural importance. And also the World Heritage Program is actually managed by the UNESCO World Heritage Committee, and this actually maintains the list of locations which actually qualify into this criteria. And this initiative is actually based on the Convention concerning the protection of the world cultural and the natural heritage, which is an international treaty that was adopted by the UNESCO in the year 1972. Also, the countries actually prepare the nomination files that meet the required criteria, and then later they actually send on to the UNESCO World Heritage Center for evaluation as well as the selection. Next one, if we actually see what are all the criteria for selection, first one is the cultural criteria and the next one is the natural criteria. Under the cultural criteria, the location actually has to represent a masterpiece of human creative genius. It has to exhibit significant interchanges of human values, their unique testimony to a cultural tradition or a particular civilization, be an outstanding example of a type of building or an architectural or technological ensemble or a landscape, and it has to be an outstanding example of traditional human settlement or land use, and it must be directly or tangibly associated with the events or living traditions of outstanding universal significance. Now moving on, if we actually look at the natural criteria, it must actually have superlative, that is the paramount natural phenomena or the areas of exceptional natural beauty and aesthetic importance, and it has to be outstanding example of representing major stages of the Earth's history, or it must be outstanding example representing significant ongoing ecological or biological processes since it's natural, and finally, it must actually contain the most important and significant natural habitats for in situ conservation of the biological diversity. The next article that we'll be discussing about is at ASEAN meet, Jaishankar, that is our External Affairs Minister, had actually held talks with the leaders. So in this particular article, we'll be discussing about this particular regional grouping, that is ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations. So here we'll be discussing about ASEAN, and we can actually map this particular topic to GS paper 2 of the mains examination under important international institutions, agencies and fora, their structure and mandate. So moving forward, there has been a previous year question asked in 2017 in the prelims examination with respect to the digital single structure market strategy, which is seen in news refers to. So these kind of agreements or the pacts that are actually signed in the regional groupings, and what are they, what are their objectives, vision, mission of the particular agreement is very, very important for both your prelims as well as the mains examination. Now moving forward, let us actually understand what this particular article discusses about. So, our External Affairs Minister, Mr. Jaishankar, had actually attended the ASEAN meetings at Laos, where he actually engaged in discussions with various leaders from Russia, South Korea, Japan, Singapore, Laos and other countries. And the focus of these discussions were on bilateral collaboration in areas of education and agriculture technology, and also we need to remember that India focuses on cooperation as well as, strategic importance of this particular region, specifically in areas of connectivity, trade, security, investment, etc. And also, our external affairs minister's interaction included a bilateral meeting with the Russian foreign minister, Mr. Lavrov, emphasizing the strategic partnership between the two countries, that is India and Russia. And moving forward, he also met with the other leaders of South Korea, the European Union, Singapore, Indonesia, New Zealand, Brunei, highlighting the breadth of India's diplomatic engagements at the ASEAN Forum. Now, moving forward, let us actually understand about this Association of Southeast Asian Nations, which is nothing but a regional organization focused on fostering economic and security cooperation among its 10 members. Here, the members of these regional forums are very, very important. Members actually include Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, as well as Vietnam. And it was actually established on 8 August 1967 in Bangkok, Thailand, through the ASEAN Declaration, that is also called as Bangkok Declaration because it was actually established there. And this was signed by Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Singapore, as well as Thailand. The motto of this particular regional grouping is one vision, one identity, and one community. And the secretariat is actually located in Jakarta, that is actually in Indonesia. And also, if you actually see the population composition and the contribution of GDP of these groupings, as of 2024, ASEAN countries have a combined population of around 673 million and they have a GDP of $3.7 trillion. If you actually see at this particular map, you actually have the countries which actually belong to this particular regional grouping that include Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia, Laos, Vietnam, Philippines, Brunei, etc. Now, moving forward, let us actually understand the institutional mechanisms of this particular grouping. So, the ASEAN Summit actually convenes annually in order to address the regional issues as well as the policy directions, as well as in order to formulate and set the policy directions. Followed by that, we have the ASEAN Coordinating Council that is actually responsible for managing the implementation of the agreements and the decisions that are actually taken by this particular grouping. And also, the Secretariat facilitates and supports the ASEAN's activities and initiatives, and we saw it is actually located at Jakarta, Indonesia. And also, we have the ASEAN Regional Forum, which provides a platform for dialogue and cooperation on political as well as security matters among the members of ASEAN and their partners. And also, the decision-making are made through consultation as well as the consensus of the members. Now, if we look at the fundamental principles on which the ASEAN actually functions, it involves number 1, mutual respect for independence, sovereignty, equality, territorial integrity, and national identity of all the nations. And also, there is another principle which focuses on the right of every state to exist independently, free from the external interference or the subversion or coercion. Next one, it works on non-interference in the internal affairs of the member states and also the peaceful resolution of differences or disputes, followed by renunciation of the threat or the use of force, and finally effective cooperation among the member states. Now, if we see the opportunities that the ASEAN actually provide for India, which is very, very important because any kind of the regional grouping, the agreements or the decisions they take, what impact it actually has on India, apart from the structure and the fora and the functions, it is very, very important. So, first one, it actually acts as a potential market. That is, ASEAN is the third largest market in the world and it offers significant export potential for India. And also, there is convergence with the India's Indo-Pacific strategy. That is, it is an integral to India's Act East policy as well as the Indo-Pacific strategy, aligning to the strategic or the geopolitical interests of the region. Next one, it helps in countering China's influence. Okay, so this actually helps in counterbalancing China's regional influence, and also it actually acts as a pathway or a connectivity to the northeastern India. So, initiatives to enhance the connectivity with ASEAN can spur the economic development in India's northeastern states, making them the hubs for regional trade as well as commerce. And the next one is rule-based order. ASEAN is crucial for promoting a rules-based security architecture in the region, that is in the Indo-Pacific region, that is actually very, very essential for regional stability as well as prosperity. Now let us solve few prelims as well as mains practice question. The first question reads, consider the following statements in respect to the 33rd Summer Olympics. So the official motto of the 2024 Summer Olympics is Games Wide Open. Yes, this is correct. The newly added sports for this Olympics include cricket. No, this is wrong. Breakdancing, sport climbing and skateboarding, these are actually correct, but this statement is wrong because cricket is included here. So since only statement 1 is actually correct, the answer will be option A. Now moving on, the second question reads, ASEAN Summit is an institutional mechanism that convenes biennially to discuss the regional issues. No, this is wrong. Convenes annually to address regional issues and set the policy directions. This is correct. And it actually meets every 5 years to manage the implementation of ASEAN agreements. This is wrong. It is held only during the time of crisis. This is also wrong. So since B is directly the correct statement, the answer is option B. Now moving on, the third question reads, consider the following statements. A location recognized for its strategic military significance and defense capabilities. A location designated primarily for its substantial economic contributions and commercial value. A location acknowledged by UNESCO for the exceptional cultural or natural significance based on the criteria set forth by the World Heritage Convention. And a site identified due to its considerable population density and urban development. Which of the above best define a UNESCO World Heritage Site? Since we know that this particular statement actually matches with that of the criterion. So, statement 3 is actually correct. So, your answer will be option C. Moving on to question number 4. The Charaideo Moidans are often compared to which of the following famous structures due to their architectural design? The Colosseum in Rome, no, this is wrong. The Great Wall of China, this is also wrong. The Pyramids of Egypt, yes, this is correct. The Eiffel Tower, this is actually wrong. So, since C is actually the right option, the correct answer is option C. Now, moving on to the fifth question. Which of the following adopted a law to protect the privacy of the children under the age of 13 while they are online, known as the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act? Australia, no, this is wrong. Canada, also wrong. The European Union is also wrong. The United States of America, this is actually the right option. So, the answer is option D. Now, moving forward, let us actually solve a mains practice question. So, the question reads, evaluate the role of BIMSTEC in promoting regional cooperation and integration among its member countries and assess its significance for India's foreign policy objectives. This is the 10 marker. So, the approach to this particular question is actually broken down into 3, that is the introduction, the body and the conclusion. In the introduction, we will actually slowly introduce the concept of BIMSTEC and what kind of regional grouping is it, emphasizing its role in regional cooperation among the Bay of Bengal countries. Moving forward, in the body, we'll actually discuss about its strategic relevance, where we'll discuss about BIMSTEC role in enhancing India's geopolitical stance against the regional challenges and opportunities for the maritime security enhancement. And also, we'll discuss about the economic benefits like, the trade growth as well as infrastructure projects that are taking place in India and Myanmar Thailand highway, highlighting the economic integration. As well as we'll be discussing various challenges like the irregular meetings, the political tensions and absence of an FTA, that is a free trade agreement, that actually hinder the deeper cooperation. And towards the end, we will conclude the answer by summarizing BIMSTEC's potential in strengthening the regional ties, and we need to also suggest few steps in order to enhance the effectiveness, focusing on resolving the operational and political challenges. With this, we've actually come to the end of our daily news analysis discussion. For more such videos, please do like, share and subscribe to Narayana IAS Academy YouTube channel. Thank you.